do you set aside a certain number of hours a day when you're writing your books? Like, this is my work time, like 9 to 5, or do you write when you feel the mood, or if you set aside those hours and you're drawing a blank, do you still make yourself sit there and try to come up with something?
You're one of the ones who raised your hand. You're one of the writers, aren't you?
She's like,
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
But I could be.
You are now. You are now.
Okay.
When I was writing this book, at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom, and my husband was working at Starbucks very strange hours, and they would change every single week. But he had read the first chapter I had written, and it became really important to him I would write it. So literally, he would come home with a schedule for the week, and then I would sit down and look at it and carve out 2.5 to 3 hours a night, because that's as long as I could be away. I had an infant daughter I was nursing. And I would go up about 15 to 20 hours a week to work at the public library, because I didn't have a computer. But now I work in the afternoon. I find for myself 1 to 5, I usually work, and the rest is all emailing.
Well, I mean, the question of block, and I say this as somebody who's looking down the barrel of writing book 3 on a very tight deadline, I think the most important thing for me is keeping momentum, and I outline everything. And when I say I outline, what I really do is I write beats, you know, and if I don't know what comes next, I say, what comes next? And then I go on to the next thing that I know. The most important thing to me is to keep moving, and you know, to sort of always have some place to go. And so I write questions in, I write things like, you know, insert awesome scene here, or whatever it takes, you know, just to keep the momentum going. I don't think there's a lot to be gained from sitting there banging your head against the wall. The fact is, you're going to have bad days when you write, you know, when you sit there for, you know, an hour looking at 2 sentences. And then you're going to have great days, and the trick is just not letting a bad day turn into a bad week, turn into a bad month. So, I mean, I tend to have, like, long periods of productivity where I work pretty much. I used to be a makeup and special effects artist, and I would, before that I was a copywriter, okay? And when I was a copywriter, I would come home and I'd be like, I don't feel like writing. I feel like watching So You Think You Can Dance and going to sleep. When I was a makeup artist, I would be on my feet for 10 or 12 hours. But while I was doing that, it was like that muscle, the writing muscle, which is located here,
outside of your body.
Yes, got a chance to rest. And as I would be, you know, making up some model who was talking about, you know, the cleanse she was on, or her boyfriend's problems, or whatever, I would be thinking of these ideas, and despite how exhausted I was, I would come home and I would start to work. You don't know what's going to work for you, and I think you just have to be sort of respectful of your own process and not worry about what everybody else is doing. Everybody works differently.
Yeah, I pretty much write all day. I just write all day. And I stop when my husband comes home for dinner and we eat, and I write until it's about 11, and then I do the dishes because he cooks, so I have to clean up. And then I go to bed. And I try to stop on weekends to spend time with my family. And I try to stop for vacations with my family. And I stop for coming out on a book tour, because they said you should really come on out and meet these fun other writers, so that's fun. But I'm pretty much always writing. It's what I want to do. Like, if you have a son or a daughter who wants to play computer games all the time, and it's like all that person wants to do, all I want to be doing is writing. So I just write all the time.
What about you? Oh, please. I was going to call on you right here.
Okay. Did you write as kids?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we probably all did.
Yeah.
But I can't speak for the rest of you, but I'm not sure I would want what I wrote to see the light of day. But yeah, I wrote a lot of things, and I very much wanted to be a writer for as long as I could remember.
When I was in 6th grade, I gave my grandmother a story I wrote just to give to her. And it was a story about a little girl who walks on the beach and is dying of a terminal illness and doesn't know.
Did you think that you were going to die?
You were fun when you were something. You were a fun
It's
kid.
this weird person. So yeah. But I think most of my writing I wrote in journals, and it was great to have a journal. I really learned how to think because I was writing. Writing and thinking became the same thing for me. Do you write stories? Yeah. Okay.
See, my mom would read my journals, so There's a lot of that psychological mom stuff. No, I'm joking.
No, you're not.
No, yeah, I would do the same thing. I would, write out the book that really mimicked whatever picture book my parents had just read me, and then I would illustrate it, and that would look strangely a lot like the pictures in it. And I would staple it up like it was mine. But my first real, I'm branching out experience was in 6th grade also, and I got in trouble because I was writing a book about all the kids in my class, and I was taking requests. So they would be like, I'm dating Charlie, and I'm wearing a pink sweater, and it goes over my shoulder like this, and we're kissing. And so I'm writing this, and it's a very sordid, Peyton Place kind of 6th grade college future. And the 6th grade teacher did not approve, and he took it away and explained to me why I was not allowed to basically, ghostwrite my class's future. So that was sad. I think that was an opportunity for a teacher to push me to write something better.
Book? Can we make requests?
Yes, we will write a Fear Streets
Fear
book,
Streets
and you can
book.
tell me what you're wearing and who you're kissing.
And if you would eat the Mentos off the floor.
If you would eat the Mentos off the floor.
I would.
Yes.
She would too. Yeah, I always wrote when I was a kid. I was an only child, so I talked to myself constantly and made up stories constantly. And then I just started writing them down, and most of them were probably not. I actually found a fantasy novel I started writing when I was, I think, around 12, and it's about a teenage assassin named Blood.
Awesome.
The weird thing is her brother's name is Jared, and I'm like, how did you draw the short straw? Like, you name your kid Blood? It's like naming, I don't know. I was about to say it's like naming your kid blah, and then they end up a stripper, but then I was like, what if there's a person with that name in this room? So I'm going to stop now.
So my question is, what other young adult authors do you find inspiring? Would you read everything that they write?
Diana Wynne Jones. I mean, she's not with us, like she was with me, like I knew her. She passed away recently, but she is an extraordinary writer, and I wish more people read her.
I love Neil Gaiman. I would read anything that he writes, especially because I feel like he is a true storyteller. He's somebody who really taps into myth and mythology, and I love that.
That moment where your mind goes entirely blank, you can't remember the name of anyone ever, born ever, including yourself. That's what I'm having right now. So I'm like, Leigh Bardugo! Everything she writes is art.
Especially that story about blood.
I want to read Jared.
No, okay, I'll give you a totally okay, so here's someone that, I don't know, is young, but whose books I really, really, really enjoy.
Holly Black, I'm going to throw out too.
Yeah, Holly Black is great.
Her
I
world
love
building is
Cody
amazing.
Keplinger's books a lot. Like I said, contemporary is my thing. I enjoy reading contemporary, and I think Cody does an amazing job of capturing what it's like to be a teenager and having really flawed characters and coping with things. I love Cody's books. I get so excited when the next Cody book is coming out.
I tend to fall in love with whatever the most recent thing is that I'm reading. And I just found out about Neil Shusterman. I think everybody else knew about him ages ago, and he was just here last week, right? Yeah. I was like, how have I missed this whole series? So I'm really excited about him. There's another young adult writer named Trish Dollar who wrote The New Normal, which I don't think anyone's heard about, and it's just really.
We know her.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, she's a debut author.
She's got a
See.
great book. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, anyway, so everybody else already knew about her too.
Yeah, Caragh.
Yeah, so those two spring to mind, but really, I mean, I kind of fall in love with whatever I'm reading, because I don't finish it unless I fall in love with it.
I'm the
right?
same
So
way.
the
I
whole
won't finish
thing.
a book if I'm not loving it.
Patrick Ness, he's great.
I went through too much grad school. to
Paolo
finish everything.
Bacigalupi, he's great. He's. Cory Doctorow's coming tonight. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say.
Pretty good.
He's all right, I guess. No, he's fantastic. I have a picture with Cory Doctorow that's like him being like I'm accommodating you, and me being like. Yeah.
Question, go ahead.
So you guys write a lot of books, but do
you ever write like a lot of poetry that ended up turning into
Oh.
books?
Poetry that turned into books? No, I can't write poetry, it's really hard.
Somewhere in 9th grade, I let this girl who rode my bus have the journal with the poetry just to see, and I never got it back, and I'm just so hoping that she lost it. It didn't never surface because I am sure it's just so angsty. I mean, and then I wrote some in college, actually. It was my preferred, when I took some creative writing classes, I preferred to write poetry. I really like to play with images, and I thought stories are hard, so I would write poetry instead.
Don't write poetry, I'm sorry.
I wrote a ton of poetry when I was younger. I mean, I can't speak to whether it was good or bad. It was probably bad. But, and I had this prof. He was the worst dressed man I've ever seen. He used to wear, like, mustard-colored shirts with emerald green ties. But he was brilliant, and I remember him giving this lecture. He was a philosophy professor, and he said, I don't read poetry to talk about it at cocktail parties. I read it because it's the last place that heightened language still exists. And I think that's really true. I mean, the world is full of bad poetry, but that's true of everything, right? There's tons of crap out there, but there's lots of extraordinary language to be found, and I still read it, and I don't really write it anymore, but there are things, threads that you sort of don't even realize were there from work that you did. And I honestly think, as long as you're generating work, you never know where it's going to lead, you know? So, and I used to, in class, instead of paying attention, write a lot of poetry, and consequently I can't do basic math, but it did keep me writing, so.
Yeah.
How do you take criticism?
Badly.
Right there in the corner. No, I think you get better at it. I think that one of the best things as a writer is when you hit the stage where you kind of are eager for criticism because you want to grow so much. I did this pitch contest when I was finishing this book, and I pitched my book, and at the end they gave me all this praise, and I sat down, and the critique partner was like, they loved it, and I was like, they didn't tell me one thing that I could do better, and I was like, that has never been me before, but that's kind of where I'm at personally with it, and like, hit me, like, let's make this better, let's do this.
Is your question more from like the writing perspective, in terms of like from beta readers, or you know, like from editors, or is it more about like reviews?
Oh, reviews make us cry.
No, just all around.
I think with readers, I really trust my readers. I really trust my beta readers, and I adore my editor. So I don't have a problem hearing that kind of criticism from them. I have incredibly thin skin, so I try to avoid reading reviews, because even if it's a good review, I will focus on the one negative thing in the review. And I keep hoping that I'm going to form some kind of like